Hello and welcome back to planetzoo Hertfordshire Zoo edition. On today's episode, whilst we are building in the daytime, we are moving on to the European zone and we will be building the Eurasian Lynx enclosure. So I started off by adding in this terrain at the back. Now the reason for this is because I wanted it to become almost like a cliff face, so that you get a different height advantage to the lynx. Although they don't have a climbing requirement, I wanted to put in some climbing materials, I guess. Again, we're going to be using a lot of rock formations. Unfortunately, there isn't really a lot of things you can really do for the lynx, so to speak. So I ended up adding in quite a lot of rock in the sides and in the middle to create their home, or their hard shelter, which also has climbing material on top of it. And then I added in this little water feature just to stop them coming onto the rocks so much. They haven't yet, but it doesn't mean that they won't. And I took some inspiration from ZSH Plays and placed in some faux rocks and coloured them green as if they were underwater, which I quite like the effect of. Then finished up with the rocks roughly in this cliff area and added the trees back because I wanted to give it the impression of a forest around the castle, which I'm actually really happy with the castle. So hopefully you saw my last video, but it remains to be seen. So my initial plan for this was to create a square mesh area. However, I thought in real life, potentially, I think they could climb this, but I'm not 100% sure. So I added in almost like an angle, but it kind of went wrong for me. So this was all fine, and then I got to the corner and I thought, well, how's this going to work, because there's no triangular mesh. And in the end I came up with some weird mesh up there. I think yes. So I added in like smaller pieces. It doesn't line up 100%, but you get the idea. And it came out okay. It's a bit messy, but you know, that's all I could really do. Unfortunately, they don't have a triangular sloped mesh. If they had a sloped mesh, then we might be in business. So I carried on this wooded mesh section across the entirety of the habitat, made it smaller in the I guess cliff area so that you could see directly in, and then fudged the side with the rocks, and again done some mesh work around the sides to make it seem a bit more compact. However, it's still not 100%, but it's better than nothing. So my idea behind this was that this was like the broken area of the castle, because just behind here, where the graveyard is a part that says no entry under construction, so you have to go all the way around so you get to see all of the animals. That was the plan. Obviously people can't walk through here, but if I connected to paths, then they would just walk straight through the bits. So I decided against connecting the paths, so you do have to walk all the way around, but I think it looks okay, so I'm not too bothered about that. I then added in this last little bit of mesh, and that was pretty much where I sort of was happy with this. It's not the best build that I've ever done, but I was happy enough with it to call it there. I then yet again struggled with the pathing system to get a staff door in, somewhere, because I pre-planned where everything was going, as you can see, all those boxes, so I couldn't really move too much to try and fit everything in. And I think it ended up coming out okay actually in the end, so I can't complain too much. Then I added in this, well, I took away some terrain to add in the leaves or the hard shelter area, but I couldn't quite get the dip that I wanted. But in the end I settled on what you can see in front of you, built it up with some rocks, and then added in the cladding at the top, as this would be their hard shelter. Now, this is actually the first animal that I've had where I can do 100% plant coverage, which I was really happy about, because it meant that I wasn't limited to how many plants I can add and what I can add. So I put in their toy enrichment and a few climbable trees, and then set about putting in this climbable bridge and connecting it to a climbable platform or branch log that they could jump up and down on from the bottom here and get up on top of their hard shelter, which again I think it looks okay, and I can sort of see it happening in real life. Then I added in a few more rocks for stability purposes. Even though there isn't stability issues in Planet Zoo, you can literally put anything you want in the ground or in the air, but I thought it was a bit more realistic. Then added in some plants around the small water area. Then I got to work on the plants in the habitat itself. So you can see that I sort of go off on a bit of a tangent and start adding in almost a bush everywhere. I then really liked the way that this periwinkle actually kind of looked through the rocks, so I added this in to give it a bit of like moss coverage, some more climbable trees. I've then done the sort of moss coverage more here using a different plant to give it the impression that, you know, no one really goes up there, it's a bit untouched. And I put this in all the cracks and crevices across the rocks, which I think gave them a bit more personality than just the boring standard rocks. As you can see, I did add in a lot. I really took advantage of the 100% coverage, and just more and more personality, we'll call it, to the rocks. I had to adjust the height, and this is the finished product.